Okay, let's get started. Welcome. We appreciate the opportunity to have everybody gather with us today to talk about answering questions. We have a whole lot of folks that are going to be with us that are going to say a few words, not only from our utility partners, but we have our County Judge Barry Hyde, we have our City Planning Director Brad Jordan, we have the Pulaski County Special School District Superintendent Jeff Sin, and a whole host of other folks that have been a part of this process. And I'm not going to go through all of it, but we're joined today by all of our utility partners who are having an impact on the future success of Little Rock. But more importantly, I want to reiterate that all of these are neighbors. We're all neighbors and obviously want to do what's right for everyone. Due to issues with data center construction and other parts of the country, recent economic development projects that we've talked about here have caused misinformation in the community. Today, we're here to announce the launch of a joint website that will serve as a source of information so people can get the facts directly from the individual projects as well as utility partners as they relate to data center construction and operation. This new website is LR Data Centers with an S on the end, facts.com. Again, lrdatacentersfacts.com. This website was jointly created by Entergy Arkansas, Central Arkansas Water, the Little Rock Water Reclamation Authority, and the Little Rock Regional Chamber of Commerce. It is intended to be a resource for community members, along with our media partners, to ensure they are getting the latest information from trusted sources. From the Chamber's perspective, significant investment and growth within our region has created the need for additional data, power, and also capacity in a whole host of areas. These projects we've actually worked on for the last 2.5 years, and there's still more to come. We're learning from the mistakes of others as we've gone through this process so that we can collectively ensure a positive impact for all of our neighbors. Beyond the high-paying jobs in the community, we'll also see significant new tax revenue. And to put that in perspective, we've calculated property tax revenue based solely on what the Google investment could be. As many of you know, there was an MOU that was approved with the city of Little Rock talking about one building for $1 billion being created on a site at the port. And as we now know, obviously from the operation of the core and the permit process underway, that could actually turn into 5 different buildings. So we talk about the positives, but we never really get to the numbers. And again, these are our calculations based upon the investment in just $1 billion data center. Total property taxes for the city of Little Rock will be $4.5 million. Total property taxes for the project will be $4.5 million. And that breaks into county revenues of $493,500, city tax revenues of $1.158 million, the city benefits investment that the company has agreed to pay of $300,000, the electric franchise fees for the city of $394,000, making the total city revenues $1.853 million. And then maybe more importantly, certainly as important, just to the Pulaski County Special School District, one building will provide annually over $2.8 million. So these projects obviously have to be good fits within our community. They also have to be good fits within our utility partners. They also need to be good neighbors. And as you're going to see going forward, each of them certainly plan to do so. If we took those calculations and multiplied them by 5, assuming Google is able to build the 5 buildings that they're looking at possibly doing through the core permit at the Little Rock port, then you can see how these numbers substantially grow in a hurry. So again, we're here today to share facts. There's been a whole lot of misinformation being shared in our community, and we want to provide answers to those questions being asked because people deserve those answers. This website is intended to provide those answers while at the same time giving facts straight from the source and providing updates as we move forward. As I said earlier, we're still in this process. This is not complete yet. And having an area where people can go and actually find this information, find updates, and see what's happening is really important. So, with our utility partners today, we're going to briefly talk about their aspect of these projects. And to kick us off, I would like to introduce the customer service manager for Entergy Arkansas, Mr. Ventrell Thompson.
Good morning. And before I get into my remarks, I want to thank Jay for setting up this press conference. I just wish you would have told me to bring a hat. So there's been a lot of conversation about data centers across the state, particularly here in Central Arkansas. And we recognize that many of you are asking, how is this going to impact Arkansas? How is this going to impact the electric grid? And most importantly, how is this going to impact your electric bill? And so today, I want to take an opportunity to answer those questions directly. And hopefully by the time we finish here today, and after you've heard from everyone, you have a little bit more confidence that the leaders in the state and leaders in the city are doing the right thing by protecting the interests of our customers. So let me start by correcting the biggest misconception that I've heard so far. These data center projects are not being built on the backs of Arkansas families and businesses. That's simply not the case. Large customers like Google and Avio are required to pay their full cost of the infrastructure needed to serve them. In fact, when companies like Google and Avio build facilities here in Arkansas, they bring significant revenue to our system. That revenue helps reduce pressure on rates for our residential customers, our small business customers, and the local industries that are already here today. And because these customers are required to pay their full cost of the infrastructure to serve them, and they're going to be absorbing some of the existing fixed cost of the system, Arkansas customers stand to benefit up to $1.7 billion over the life of these contracts. And so, as a regulated utility, our responsibility first and foremost is to the families, to the businesses, and to the communities who are already depending on us every day. And that means maintaining affordability, protecting reliability, and making sure growth benefits all customers, not just the few. So it's also important to remember that Arkansas is already experiencing significant growth from new customers that are moving into the state and major expansion from our existing facilities right here in the state as well. And over the next 5 years, we anticipate that surge in energy demand will continue, but that's going to be driven by industrial expansion, community growth, and evolving energy needs of our customers. And many of the advantages that Arkansas enjoys today, particularly even some of the lowest rates in the country, are the result of investments and policy decisions made by leaders decades ago. And those decisions positioned Arkansas for growth then, and the decisions that we're making right now are going to position us to the future of the next, position us for the future. And so to meet this growing demand, Entergy Arkansas is making smart investments in new generation facilities, whether that's Ironwood and Jefferson Power Station, or as well as the Arkansas Cypress Solar and Battery Facility. These investments not only ensure we can meet the future demand, but they also help modernize our system and strengthen the reliability across the state. So I want to be very clear on this point here. We will not serve any new data center loads unless we can maintain or improve the reliability for all of our existing customers. Full stop. So we hear and we understand the concerns that are being raised in other parts of the country, whether that's in Memphis, right across the river in Memphis, with the XAI facility, or whether that's in Northeast or the Northeast part of the state where prices are escalating. Well, that simply does not reflect the reality that's happening right here in Arkansas. Our regulatory framework, our energy mix, our cost structures are set up differently. We actually have protections in place for our customers. And a key part of that protection is our Fair Share Plus pledge. Before we agree to serve any data center, we perform extensive analysis to ensure that we can deliver the power without compromising reliability or affordability for our existing customers. And so Fair Share Plus ensures that large customers pay their full cost of service while also creating additional benefits for Arkansans. So one example of that is Google's $25 million Energy Impact Fund, which supports energy efficiency and workforce development in Crittenden County and AI education initiatives across the state. And in fact, the structure of our agreement with Google was specifically recognized in the White House announcement related to the National Ratepayer Protection Principles tied to data center growth. So at its core, Fair Share Plus does two things. One, it ensures that all of data centers are going to pay their full cost to serve. Two, it's going to produce additional savings or benefits for our existing customers. Fair Share Plus can be summarized in a couple of different comments. First, strong financial protections. These agreements require long-term contracts, collateral requirements, guaranteed revenue structures that ensure data centers pay their full share of the infrastructure needed to serve them, including additional costs of the existing grid. Secondly, reliability and power quality protections. To protect the grid, we will not move forward with any projects unless the generation solution is timed with the demand. So essentially what that means is we're not going to let them join on the system until we have a solution in place to meet their needs. We also require these facilities to invest in equipment that maintains the standard of quality and protects the grid for all of our other customers. And third, accountability and long-term value for Arkansas. Each of these projects remains subject to oversight by the Arkansas Public Service Commission, while also supporting investments in clean energy resources that are going to strengthen our grid for the future. So together, these principles ensure that the financial obligations tied to serve data centers stay with those customers and not with our residential customers. Instead, we will benefit through stronger reliability, economic growth, and the long-term value for our communities. The investments we make do more than just keep the lights on. They're powering communities, they're strengthening communities, they're supporting jobs, and they're ensuring Arkansas remains competitive for the future. So Entergy Arkansas is a fully regulated utility, and every major investment that we make is subject to strict oversight and review. That transparency and accountability is built into every project, every agreement, and every rate decision that is made. So that is the standard we're holding ourselves to, and that is the standard we will continue to deliver to our customers. And so at this time, I am going to turn it over to Tad Bohannon, CEO of Central Arkansas Water.
Good morning. You know, in many ways, the electric utility and the water utility look at data centers the same way, of that we have a responsibility to our existing customers and businesses that we serve, as well as future generations, not just tomorrow. But thank you for being here. Over the past several weeks, we've heard many questions about the availability of water and the impact that a data center could have on the water supply for Central Arkansas. So today I want to be very clear, very direct, which I accuse of being frequently, and very factual about three things: your water bill, your water supply, and CAW's ability to treat water safely and deliver it to our customers. Let's start with the water bill because it seems to be very high on everybody's minds these days. Central Arkansas Water sets rates based on the cost to serve each customer type. We have two categories of customers, residential and commercial. We do not shift cost from commercial customers to residential customers. Our current rate structure, which was adopted in 2023, and our long-term infrastructure plan were approved before data centers were really on the radar around here. And they were independent of any single economic development project. In short, data centers do not drive our rates today, and they will not increase water bills going forward. Just to be clear, that doesn't mean that your UBS bill that you receive every month in your paycheck will not go up. There's many different things that are on that bill that cover many different costs. But it does mean that data center improvements and data center cost will not be coming to you on your individual home bill. Now let's talk about water supply. We're really fortunate in Central Arkansas. In the 1930s and the 1950s, our predecessors built two lakes, Lake Winona and Lake Maumelle, which provide some of the best raw water in the country. We see that in taste test contests. We see that in water quality testing that is done by various different organizations. They were planned decades ago to support long-term population and economic growth in Central Arkansas. It's true, these data centers on certain days will use large volumes of water, but they go through a rigorous engineering and planning review before service is approved. We evaluate whether we have sufficient supply, treatment capacity, pumping, and storage to meet today's demands, new demand, and the future's demand. I think it's important to say right here, my son just turned 20, and I want him to live here in Central Arkansas, and I want him to have a big supply of high quality water to drink every day for him and his family as his state goes. Data center demand will be added to our already robust system of supply. It will not reduce availability, pressure, or reliability for residential customers. I want to be clear about this. Providing safe, reliable water to households remains our top priority, backed by strong watershed protection and long-term planning. Central Arkansas Water was an early leader nationwide in long-range planning, adopting a 2050 strategic plan and a 2100 asset management plan, a framework that guides how we maintain, replace, and invest in critical infrastructure over the next generations. And we plan and build for the long run. Another common question is whether ratepayers will be asked to pay for the infrastructure needed to serve data centers. The answer is no. Under Central Arkansas Water's rate design, large commercial customers and new developments are responsible for the infrastructure required to serve their demand. That includes water mains, system upgrades, and any other improvements needed solely for that facility or development. Those costs are paid directly by future customers who create the demand, not by existing commercial and residential ratepayers. There is no socialization of data center infrastructure cost onto households. In fact, it is just the opposite. The distribution and system improvements CAW will require the data centers to pay for will provide additional water to parts of our delivery system and enable additional growth in those areas. Finally, let me address concerns about our ability to treat drinking water. CAW has significant treatment capacity built into our systems. We operate 2 treatment plants. The Jack Wilson treatment plant that you see the storage capacity off when you're driving down 430 in the Big White Dome, and the Ozark Point facilities at the top of Ozark Hill. With a combined rated capacity of 157 million gallons per day. On an average day, we treat 67 million gallons a day. And even on our highest demand days, we used about 126 million gallons. That was in 2012. Over in 2025, we only had 5 days that went above 100 million gallons a day during the summer. So we truly have a buffer between excess demand and excess capacity. And we are not standing still. We are currently in the middle of a $230 million multi-year renovation of the Jack Wilson treatment plant, the largest infrastructure project in our history. This project modernizes equipment, improves efficiency, and increases long-term treatment capacity to ensure we can reliably serve Central Arkansas water for generations to come. Before any large user, including a data center, is connected, our highly skilled engineers confirm that the system can handle the demand safely and reliably. As a result, data center water use is fully accommodated with existing and planned capacity and does not compromise water quality, treatment, reliability, or customer service, even during peak usage periods. So let me close with this. We work closely with local and regional economic development leaders, including Mayor Scott, Jay Cheshire, Jack Thomas, County Judge Barry Hyde, to ensure growth is thoughtful, responsible, and fully aligned with our top priority of protecting safe, reliable water service for the people of Central Arkansas. We've planned carefully, invested responsibly, and built a system designed for growth. Data centers are being evaluated within that system, not placed on top of it, not placed ahead of residents, and not at residents' expense. Your water will remain safe, your service will remain reliable, and your household will not be asked to subsidize industrial growth. That is our commitment to Central Arkansas, and we take it very seriously. The other thing we take serious is our purpose of protecting public health. That's what we do by providing reliable, clean water every day. So now it is my pleasure to introduce Jean Block, CEO of Central Arkansas Water Reclamation Authority, who will address her utilities efforts.
Good morning. I'm Jean Block. I'm the CEO of Little Rock Water Reclamation Authority. And I have 4 points that I would like to make about the proposed data center project, which we have been involved in, located in the Port of Little Rock. The first is that the data center will not impact or increase the sewer rates of utility customers. Per the memorandum of understanding that it signed, the data center has and will continue to pay 100% of all costs related to transporting and treating its wastewater. The second point pertains to the quality and quantity of that wastewater. In 2025, our utility conducted a study into the anticipated quality and quantity of their wastewater. From the results, we have confirmed that Fush Creek Water Reclamation Facility, which is our treatment plant located in the Port of Little Rock, can adequately treat the wastewater with no impact to our treatment process or plant. The third point pertains to sewer capacity. Our Fush Creek facility currently has 8 million gallons per day of available capacity. For reference, 8 million gallons per day is equal to usage from 32,000 homes. This means that that plant can handle the wastewater from the data center with no impact to our system. And presently, our utility has committed to accept 300,000 gallons per day from the data center. Our Fush Creek facility will continue to serve industries in the Little Rock Port with available capacity remaining to support future growth. Finally, the location of the data center in the Little Rock Port is important. It is physically close to the Fush Creek Water Reclamation Facility. Therefore, wastewater can be treated efficiently without the need for major new infrastructure. I will now turn it over to Jack Thomas, Senior Vice President of Economic Development of the Little Rock Chamber.
Thank you, Gene. You know, when we first started working these projects, as Jay mentioned, 2.5 years ago, there were a few concerns that we had because of what we've read about data centers around the country. First, you hear that these things are noisy, and I think some of that can be traced back to the first Bitcoin mines and cryptocurrency facilities, which, let me be very clear, these data centers are not Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. These are the most advanced technology data centers in the world. To put that in perspective, Google, which is inside the city limits of Little Rock, will be governed by City of Little Rock noise ordinances, which Google has pledged to meet or better. Every Google project includes an expert acoustic study to model and meet noise levels for the surrounding area. And very similar to that, Aveo has pledged to commission a noise study and already incorporates mitigation design into every facility so that neighbors are not impacted. The next issue that we were concerned about was air pollution. And I think much of this, as was mentioned earlier, can be traced back to XAI in Memphis, running on these unpermitted natural gas turbines that have very little regulatory oversight and hum at all hours of the day and night. Let me be very clear. Based on the contract that Aveo has with Entergy Arkansas and the public pledge from Google, there are no plans to use these types of natural gas turbines on site. The electricity for both sites is planned to be sourced from distant power generation facilities and transmitted to the site using electrical transmission infrastructure managed by Entergy Arkansas. And like any project, there is an air permitting process with oversight from ADEQ and the Arkansas Department of Energy and Environment. And lastly, we've heard comments about the wetlands impacts based on Google's wetlands permit application with the Army Corps of Engineers. And I have read everything. I've made the mistake of reading Facebook comments, which is a dark, dark place that you can go. And I have read everything from pulling water from Fouche Creek to discharging toxins to Fouche Creek, draining the Arkansas River, depleting our aquifers by drilling wells. None of that is happening. Here's what is happening, as you've heard today. Google will use water from Central Arkansas Water's robust network and will discharge that water to Little Rock Water Reclamation Authority, which will treat the discharge water, which is very clean, by the way, in one of its treatment plants. The permit that was filed requires that Google coordinate with federal and state agencies and conduct thorough environmental reviews under laws such as the Endangered Species Act, as well as the National Historic Preservation Act. The Corps must conduct a full public interest review weighing environmental, economic, and social factors, which is ongoing. And when it's all said and done, Google will likely be required to preserve wetlands at a 2-to-1 or greater ratio, meaning more wetlands will be preserved and restored as a result of this project than would have otherwise been restored. Google has already partnered with the Little Rock Port Authority on a 29-acre wetland park with permanent wetlands and habitat preservation at the port, and over 6,000 trees have already been planted. So my encouragement to you today is to take the time to learn about these two specific projects and not apply what you've read online about data centers broadly and apply a regulatory framework in another state to these two projects here in Arkansas. Just like every hospital is different, every bank is different, every manufacturing company is different, every data center operator is different. And we are working with two of the most socially conscious, environmentally conscious, and community conscious operators that exist in the marketplace. And in doing so, we have a significant opportunity to enhance city services, county services, as well as our public schools. Thank you.
So beyond the fact that you're not going to have to go to the sun tanning booth today, would like to end this before I ask these folks to come up and be available to answer any questions by saying, when we started down this path more than 2 years ago, we had the same concerns that are being expressed not only across our community, but across the state and the country. And as has been mentioned, one of the things that we constantly look for is doing no harm to others. Any project that we're working on is based upon that project being additive and not being a negative to anyone. We believe the work that's been done so far is doing just that. There are no groundwater issues because we're not allowing them to utilize groundwater. There are no environmental issues because we're going through the most stringent permit review that most of our projects have to go through. This is not the only one. We're not creating water issues, and as I like to tell Tad, we have the best water this side of glory, and we're not going to screw that up. We're not going to create an issue from an electrical grid standpoint that causes problems. In fact, if you listened to each one of these folks, what you heard was the investment that the companies are making in all of these entities and other will actually be additive to the people within that portion of the county, will actually help us recruit more industry to the Little Rock port, will actually help growing neighborhoods in that part of the county have access to water, obviously reliable electricity, and many other things. So I didn't have an opportunity when we began to recognize our mayor, Frank Scott Jr., wanted to recognize him, and also the director of our port, Brian Day. All of these people have been at the forefront of this process from the very beginning. All of these people continue to be a part of the process because, as I began with, we're not finished. We really are in the middle of what we believe will be transformational investments for not only ourselves, but our children, our grandchildren, and beyond. And in doing so, doing what's right for all. So if I could get Ventrell, if I could get Tad and Gene, if I could get the mayor, the county judge, Jack, and anybody else, Brian, that wants to stand up here, we'll be happy to have anybody join us and answer any questions that you may have. Please join me. Questions? Yes, ma'am.
Can you say how much power one of these or two of these facilities will use?
Actually, that's yet to be determined, but I'll let Ventrell speak to that.
Good. Thank you for repeating that because I didn't quite hear it. But it's important to understand that when we create these agreements with our customers, that those agreements are about how much power they use. That's confidential to their operations. And so as a standard, we kind of keep that confidential. But just know that we are working with our customers to make sure that we're building all of the capacity that they need so that they won't need any additional power. So we're going to provide all the power that they need.
Next question. Yes, ma'am.
Will you commit to not shifting any of the costs to residential customers for additional generation necessary to serve data centers?
Yes, those costs will not be shifted to other customers.
I like those quick answers.
Right in the middle.
Hi, Kathy. Sorry, you're behind that hat. I need to borrow that.
I'm Kathy Wells, Coalition of the Little Rock Neighborhoods. We've been following this for several months, and many of you have had contact with us about this. Two questions. One is for Gene about the presence of forever chemicals, PFAS chemicals, in wastewater from this Google data center. Do you expect to have this, and how will you handle this?
The short answer is we do not expect to have it.
Okay. The wetlands that were mentioned, the 29 acres, what authority has the title to that? I'm not talking about that.
Yes, ma'am. So, Little Rock Port Authority Board of Directors about 6 months ago, and one of my board members, Keith Harvey's here, they set aside 29 acres of land in permanent easement. The easement is held by the Arkansas Land Bank Trust, and those 29 acres will be preserved in perpetuity. Google, in their efforts, helped purchase wetland credits, which allowed us to plant about 6,000 trees. More importantly, the Little Rock Port Authority Board also set aside 500 acres of land that we have further south down Fish Island to be put into a wetland bank in perpetuity as well.
Yes, ma'am. Before we answer that question, I didn't have a chance to recognize Justice of the Peace Phil Stowers, who obviously the county is a big part of this process, and we appreciate you being here as well. Yes, ma'am.
I have two questions for
Would you mind coming forward a little bit? We're having a tough time hearing, and I'm old.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I have two questions for Todd O'Hannon. First, you mentioned that we're not going to see pressure reductions, liability reductions. We already see issues with that with other data centers in other states, like in Georgia, residential customers associated dropping their pressure to doing it by data center. Can you talk a little bit about why that won't happen here, or why you think it won't happen here?
The Central Arkansas water system operates on several different pressure planes, and the data center is in an area that's a gravity feed pressure plane. So the pressure comes actually from the gravity that's bringing it, plus two tanks that we have down, not in the port, but in that direction. And so that's what provides the pressure. So we have plenty of storage capacity to maintain pressure within the system, plus the natural pressure that is coming from the treatment plant itself at the Ozark treatment plant. By the way, that water flows all the way from Lake Winona by gravity, so there's no pumping. And I have my chief operating officer here and my director of engineering that if I made a mistake in what I said, they are welcome to correct me. They said I'm good.
The other question I had is if these centers are going to be on kind of communal infrastructure piping, I guess you said they're bookend pumping stations that wouldn't apply. If that results in additional wear and tear that results in those needing to be replaced or fixed more often, who's going to bear the cost of that?
So the two different data centers are connecting to systems that are already in place and pipe that we keep our water moving through our pipes all the time. We want to do that for water quality purposes. So the data center and the port would actually be connecting to an existing line and bringing a line over to the port. So its line to the port would be, it would be the first customer off of that line. And it is going to be connecting to a pipe where we would like to see more flow to actually maintain the water quality within the pipe. So, the cost of replacements, I mean, these are 100-year-old assets that we're talking about putting into the ground once they're installed. But the cost is going to be initially paid for, and then it will be calculated in our rates with the commercial customers paying their share of the cost and the residential customers paying their share of the cost. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
What's going to be the water demand for each data center? How many water demand?
Water supply. Repeat the question.
The question was asked is what's the water demand that's going to be required for the two units? Currently, we are looking at 4 million gallons a day. Now, I think it's really important when we say that is it is not a facility that is going to take 4 million gallons of water each and every day. We have other customers that everybody knows that are in the community, from wholesale customers to hospitals and other large infrastructure that uses a lot of water every day. Like when a data center is asking us about the availability of water a day, they're talking about water on the hottest day, not a year-round average. So the maximum demand is from each system right now is 4 million gallons.
Yes, ma'am.
What's that year-round average?
We don't have an exact number right now. It depends a lot on temperature, so it varies, but there's capacity there to be able to serve it.
Yes, sir. I'll come right back to you.
The zoning of the land where the data center is located, is that a specialty type of zoning because of it being a data center and the demands that it has for the environment? And also, will there be a limit to the number of data centers that can be built here in the city of Little Rock, that the city of Little Rock can handle?
So from the perspective of the zoning aspect within the city, everything at the Port of Little Rock is zoned heavy industrial. So when we annex property into the port, we're annexing it in as such. As you've heard said, from a noise perspective and from a whole host of other things, the company will either meet or exceed light industrial. So from the perspective of the zoning piece, it is not special anything beyond what the entire port currently is. And I'm sorry, what was the second question?
Will there be a limit to the number of additional, or just a limit in general to the number of data centers that can be built here?
So, and I'll let these folks give their answer. My answer to that is, if you like chocolate, too much of it will kill you. And so the reality is, if it's an advanced manufacturing facility, if it's a data center, if it's a hospital, if it's whatever, if there are too many of those and we don't have the ability or the capacity to provide the services each needs to be successful, then we hurt everyone by trying to add more than we need. Those are questions that we ask on every specific project. We get to the point from a data analytics standpoint, looking at their workforce needs to ensure that we have within our region those folks already here or our ability to be able to produce them, from engineers down to assemblers and everything in between. So that's something that we take very, very seriously in every project. So my answer to that is no, we will not create a data center overload, because that would not be good for everyone. Would you like to hear that from someone else?
Go ahead.
So as a regulated utility, we're obligated to serve all customers that want to locate within our service territory. But with that said, that we are always governed by the Arkansas Public Service Commission, and so every agreement and every agreement that we agree to has to be approved by the Public Service Commission, whose primary job is to make sure they're protecting the interests of all Arkansans. So with that, I would say that we want to be able to serve as many as we can. However, but that will be based on what the Arkansas Public Service Commission approves.
I'm sorry, please repeat that. We do not yet know who they are contracting with. Avio is a lot like Bluestem. For those of you that have been to the port, Bluestem built a warehouse distribution facility with the intent to lease it to other companies that needed that space. Avio is the exact same way. So they're in the process now of creating those contracts. As soon as we have that information and they make it available to us, we certainly will share that. So, Brian, from the standpoint of the port facility, I would say the closest neighborhood is 3 miles? 2 miles?
Maybe a mile and a half, 2 miles.
Mile and a half to 2 miles on the port side. With the Avio facility, I think the closest thing that's not an industrial facility would be the school, and I believe it's about a half a mile away, which, as they have said repeatedly, the current ambient noise at their property boundary will not go up at all based upon what they're going to actually build there. So, we often forget that these folks are coming here because they want to be here. And the last thing they want to do is something that is going to create a problem for others, because then it won't be comfortable for them to be here. We lovingly announce new attractions when they come, but the best announcement of all is when something that has come here expands, because then that means we've kept our word and they've kept their word to continue our growth. So that's a great question. Yes, ma'am.
You and I had a conversation a couple of months ago regarding this data center going in. There was a lot of people that were asking questions in the community, and you said there's answers for everything that they need, but people didn't have the answers, and they continued to go down the rabbit hole to read stories about locations that maybe didn't go so well. And so you told me that you were under a non-disclosure agreement. So based on the information that you're giving us today, does that mean the non-disclosure agreement is lifted? And does that mean that you will continue to give us updates as progress goes on?
So the answer is about non-disclosure agreements and whether or not this information has meant that the non-disclosure agreement is over. The answer to that is, from the perspective of the information we're providing today, each entity themselves, they're putting up their own web page so that we can link to it. The non-disclosure agreements are still in place simply because the finality of those projects, either one of those projects, has not yet been fully recognized. Once that takes place, obviously, as we said, all of that information will be made available to the general public. And the reason it's not that anyone's trying to hide anything. It's contract negotiations for Avio with companies that they're looking to have operate in the facility. From a Google perspective, they're still trying to determine what exactly is going to be built. And so that information obviously is competitive, and they will keep it as such until it's time to make that announcement. I want to focus on something that you said, though, because I don't want to leave anyone with a misconception. I don't have answers to everyone's questions. I don't know everyone's questions, but what we do have answers to are those questions that have been asked about cost, how any of these things will impact ratepayers. And I think, as you've heard over and over and over again today, the answer is no, it's not going to negatively impact ratepayers. I'm told one more question. I got two more hands. Can I take two? Yes.
We are not negotiating special rates, and in fact, we're saying you'll pay the same commercial rates that all of our other commercial customers pay.
Yes, ma'am.
Is this in response to the items on the board report agenda this evening? Is that why this event is halted?
Actually, we've been working with both Avio and with Google and our energy or municipal utility partners for the last several weeks to try and bring forward answers to questions. As Director Wyrick said, a lot of people have a lot of questions. And up until now, we've not been able to step forward and really try to answer most of them. But now we're at a point in both of those projects where we can share this information and at the same time provide a place that people can go to not only learn what's been shared today, but to also learn about what's going to be happening as each project moves forward. So this is simply about trying to answer questions for everyone in the community, recognizing that there's still going to be some, and we'll do our darndest to be able to answer them as they come along. Good question. Okay, with that, thank you so very much. We appreciate all of you for being here and look forward to provide updates as we move forward. Have a great day.